You're not really cool, right? You just look cool, but it doesn't mean you're cool. So now I'm always cool. Even at night, I'm cool. And that's really sad for an artist. Anyway, threads from borderland, yeah. Yes, I come from the borderlands. And if you want to interrupt for questions or comments, feel free to do so. So, Consuelo Jimenez Underwood. My mom's maiden name was Cruz. My father's Jimenez. And this is the border as it hits the ocean. In one side is Tijuana, and the other side is San Diego. And so I remember as a kid always crossing that back and forth. My father was one of the first braceros that came during World War II. So he stayed and he never got his papers fixed. So up until the time I was 9 or 10, we would frequently bring him back from Mexico into the U.S. when, as a child, we would have to help smuggle him across. And it was terrifying, it was horrific. And I always felt like that little girl in the back of that sign. Because we were okay, but it was my dad. And he was the one that loved me of all. And I was like, oh no, that's horrible. So I hated that wall. I hated that the arguments that would always entail before crossing it, the arguments afterwards. And I went, this is wrong. What is wrong? So I never met my dad's mother. I always imagined she looked something like this. She was full-blooded Huichol. She married a man from the hacienda, a Mexican from the hacienda, one of the workers. And she would have to hide in the hacienda, that he would say, when the relatives would visit, because they weren't allowed to speak their language. So when the relatives would come, they'd go to the darkest granary corner and they'd talk hush-hush. So my father never grew up with the Huichol culture. He grew up in the Mexican macho culture. But in his soul, I know he was this. This was an image of a Huichol shaman back in, I guess, the 60s. My dad didn't dress like this, but I know he was a descendant of this. And I always thought how cool it would be if everybody would go around dressed like this, you know. And then the shamans, apparently, they would embroider their own, and the baddest one had the best embroideries. And so my dad had none of this issue of men don't touch threads. You know, when it was raining and there was no work, he would take out a frame loom and he would weave. And he'd weave my dresses. And even though they were brightly colored and they were basically paper doll dresses that he would just sew on the sides, I felt pretty cool. But that stopped when I was like 5 or 6. The pressure of the male society in this country was too hard on him, you know, and for him to ridicule him that he wasn't a man because he did threads wasn't good. So he stopped it, and I went, oh, because when he would do that, that's when he would tell me stories and sing to me, and I'd have him all to myself, and he'd have me all to himself, and it was good. So I grew up all of California. I claimed the whole state. We would go up and down Highway 99 looking for work, picking, and I always felt empowered by the earth. The Virgen de Guadalupe was the one icon that I had to come to terms with as a young person. But I embraced her once I understood that she really was an American icon. She didn't come from Europe, and that was my big angst that, oh my God, is she from Europe? Oh, not her too, not her. But as with research, she is an icon of the Americas. So I embraced her, and I felt that she was like my pseudo-grandmother that took care of me, even though I was picking prunes. And Emiliano Zapata was, of course, always like, dang, why did they have to kill him? Why did they have to shoot him? Why couldn't they do the peace talks like they said? Why did they have to surround him and cut him down, you know, behead him, and all this horrible stuff? So those were my two powers, the male and the female. And there I am down in the corner with my mom in Vacaville. And I think it was 1963, 1962, the Beatles were just hitting the waves, and I was going on to my second decade of life. Because I swore during the decade of 10 to 20 years old I was going to get out of the fields and I was not going to be in the fields anymore. So I was happy because I was on my way. I was going to go to Berkeley. I was going to do all this stuff. What ended up as I ended my first decade of planning, I planned my first decade at 9. I was going to be 10, and I said when I'm 20, I won't be in the fields anymore. When I got to 20, at 1970, I had 2 children, my honey there, and I said, okay, everybody's going to school. Everybody's at my age, at 20, they're going to school or they're traveling, and I'm going to be, for the next 10 years, the best mom anybody had. So I dug in, I embroidered everything in the house, and this is one of his shirts, one of the last embroideries before I went to school. And everything had to be embroidered that was wearable. That was, I think, part of my ritual need or roots. So I would get these old icons that I could relate to in spirit and do them a la Consuelo in 1970 in San Diego and Escondido. And there's my CS down there for Consuelo. So 1970s came. In the late 70s, 1979 around there, it was time to, what am I going to do now? It's going to be the next decade. Because I knew life only was 5 to 6 decades, and it's over. And at 9, I already went through 1. So I only had 3 or 4 more to go, so I had to make sure, this is Consuelo with her ideas, that I was doing things that I needed to do before I hit the age of 60 that looked ancient to me, because my mom was that age. I'm now 65. But anyway, at the time I went, well, what do I want to do? Okay, I want to go to school. I need to get that education. But is it religious studies or is it art? Oh, you can't do art. Why not? It's a craft. This is 1979. San Diego State was in this big turmoil of what to do with their craft department. And they decided to call it applied design. But yes, this is 79, and that's when I asked my children what they wanted for Christmas. The boy wanted world peace and the hunger. The girl wanted to go on to Stanford and be the first woman Supreme Court justice. And so I thought, okay, the kids are on the right road. It's time for me to, what am I going to do? Oh, well, how about this? Look at wow, you mean with sticks and some plants, I can make that? How? It looks like magic. It's coming out of her womb, and it's so rudiment. There's no nothing is necessary except your head and your hand and your will. I want to learn how to do that. So I applied at UC Davis, La Jolla and at San Diego State. Got accepted at both. But La Jolla seemed I was going to be into theory and art, and I decided I want to do this. So I went to San Diego State, and from Joan Austin, I learned how to spin, dye. This is the 1980s now. I learned how to spin and dye and weave, but I had to also learn how to paint, how to make art. Not just craft, art. So in my painting classes, this is stuff at San Diego State. When I was painting on plywood, and this is me picking tomatoes in Sacramento. And there's a yellow school bus that took me out of the fields. But what I love about the painting wasn't the painting so much. I love that I put nails all along. And then I got red wire, and I wove the wire on top of the paint.
Who was your painting teacher? I was at San Diego State at the same time. Taking painting.
I don't know. I was there.
Was it Gail Fields?
I just know he was a taller man with glasses, thin, and peppered.
Collie.
There.
Collie.
Okay.
I love him.
Oh well, I think he liked me too, except that he caught me ditching his class, weaving on a frame loom for my other class. And I went, And then I went, okay, this is it. You gotta go and change your major, applied design. You're gonna be a weaver. And that was it. I was a freshman. Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm out of there. I'm going to learn to do this. So this is all my linen. At the time, I was learning how to weave with wool. And I'm going, wool? I'm not. This is Southern California. Why are we weaving with wool? And it was like, that's for, highlands, sheep, not the desert. Let's go to work with wool. So I got into linen and cotton. Cotton was soft, but linen was tough. And so I really loved the linen, and I love the synthetic. So this is one of the last frame pieces I've made at San Diego State. My dad actually had a loom that he would make like this, and I was very comfortable in this format of what my dad was doing. I thought that was so cool. 500 years later, here I am still weaving, what I want to weave. And by this time, I'm showing off that I can weave. I put the threads on, and I have this layer coming underneath. This one is going through that one. I mean, I was just permeating, showing that, hey, I know how to weave all this stuff, and let me graduate at San Diego. And that's what I learned from Joan Austin, how to do this specific, this fine. And then I did a piece called Open Passion, and I wonder if I had that over. There it is. It's almost that size. And again, this is the graduate work at San Diego State as a master's student. And you notice at the time, I made a promise when I walked into San Diego State: no hoops, no macrame, no feathers, no fringe, anything but whenever they said weaving, underwater basket weaving, macrame, and I'm going, no. It's going to be painted weavings or weavings painting, whatever. But it's not going to be fringe. And look at how tight. And this is so see-through. I mean, it's very sheer. And at the top I have, and all this is dyed by me. So I'm really, here you go. You can see that I'm playing with warp density. And I put in a little tapestry like the Peruvians, and a little color action. And the most beautiful part, no fringe. I had 21 pieces, or 23 actually, because 2 did not sell at my MA show at San Diego State. And I was so happy driving to San Jose, because we had already moved to San Jose. And I'm going, what am I going to show? I sold everything. Oh my God. So San Jose State. I needed my MFA. I just wasn't happy with the master's. I wanted the highest, so I went for the MFA at San Jose. And there, they were like, weaving? Oh my God. Are you serious? In the arts? They accepted me as a master's. I was teaching their color classes. And I went, yeah, and you know what? I'm going to give you fringe. And I'm going to give you everything you sweat, So this is one of the pieces I was very experimental. I needed to show that I could work with material, express ideas. And so what I was doing, I was getting bamboo, painting it, weaving it in, and all loom construction. And again, I got bamboo slides that were everywhere in the thrift stores. I would spray paint on them, take them apart, and weave them into a woven structure. In this case, into a side of tapestry. And this piece is like 7 feet. It's like this 7 feet by like 38 inches. So it's much bigger than that. And this I call the Vision of the Headlights. And it was about, I always wanted to be real tough. Spray paint graffiti, right? But I was always too chicken. And I always thought, if I did that, I know I'm going to get busted. So here I am pretending that I'm spray painting this Virgen, and I'm being caught from behind with light. But it's also a Virgen of destruction, of sorrow, violence. That's the Virgen de Guadalupe that I know. Again, San Jose State, it helped me go. It was under the spatial area of the arts, so this is suspended, and it's basically bamboo placemats that I spray painted and re-wove in with wire weft so that I could bend it afterwards and it would have that flow. And then you can see these marks. these yellow marks are the original marks that held the placemat in place before I spray painted it. So I was like, wow, this looks so cool. Now to paint this would be the same as making it. So I was on my way. I knew that I was on to something different. I was already getting attention of a lot of the textile folks and the craft folks, the art folks. This is the behan. This is a little bigger than that, but it's a double layer. We call it double weaving, where you weave 2 layers at once. On the top layer is the plastic with the behan, and behind it is the layer of fabric. That to me looks like it's like an abstract red painting. But the front, as you remember at San Diego State, we learned how to I learned not just how to respect process, but how also to respect the object. So my weavings had to have a front and back just as beautiful. It wasn't like painting where you turn the painting in the back and it's all this. No, my weaving is going to be like a fabric. It's going to be both sides. So that was San Jose. Wouldn't you know it? As I was about to graduate and leave San Jose State and take on the whole world, they offered me a full-time 10-year job before I could graduate to take over on the fiber department. I didn't even know what tenure was. What's tenure? They told me, don't worry about it, Consuelo. You have to be famous to get that. And I went, huh? You just took the fun out of it. Because I was going to be famous. I knew I was going where no one had gone before with Lumen Hilos. So I said, okay, in 10 years I'll do it. And I did. So what did I do? The first thing I did was I got this huge studio, and I got the full-time 10-year track job that everybody lusted. I was all set up to teach in convalescent homes, private nursery schools, in my garage, and if that didn't work, Consuelo, you know you can make a good taqueria. So don't worry about what you're going to do with this degree with an MFA in weaving. Don't worry about it. I didn't, and I got the job, and so I said, okay, I got to thank my heroes, the ones that helped me in my path. And the first one right off the bat, was Joan of Arc. When I was 9, I read her trials. And it was so cool to see this 12, 14-year-old girl lead an army to kick England out of France. In the early hundreds of 14, 12, I don't know what year. I'm like, dang, now that's a woman. Consuelo, I was 9 when I read this. You're going to be 10, a decade. You don't think in 10 years you can get out of the fields after this chick goes out and kill, I said, I could do it too. So I did it. I wove her, I honored her because she was always in the back of my mind with a burial shroud. And so I did this series. The first series I did out of student work was the burial shroud series. And this is Joan of Arc, her burial shroud. She, of course, was burned at the stake, wore no makeup, always in white. Do I have a close-up? Yes. I'm weaving linen with some synthetic rayon. And her two powers are her sword, and on the other side, on the right, it's a cross. I reversed the colors because the sword and the cross were her powers. So she is now, I think, properly buried for me. The other one was Emiliano Zapata. So this is also maybe like a little over 5 feet 8, somewhere around there. That's what I imagine him to be. And all of these heroes, the burial shrouds the traditional burial shrouds, you're wrapped up like a mummy. I wanted my heroes to just have a covering. If they wanted to poke their toes out, they could. So this guy, he was gunned down, and he has a story, and I think we all know it, but basically he was told by the elders of the village, go to Mexico City and tell the people and tell the folk over there to stop raiding our villages during when it's harvest time and taking our women. Of course, they laughed him out of the town, and he goes back to the village and says, we got to get our guns and get our women and food back. So that didn't last too long, maybe 3 or 5 years. So I always thought, okay, he knew death and he knew life. He knew it when he made those decisions, and he went for it anyway. On this one, I silk screened before and after I wove the shroud. The other one is Dr. King. And Dr. King, of course, Sister Rosa was a seamstress, which was perfect. She was the one that instigated the whole, for me, the whole movement. And for Dr. King, I had a black and white TV. And all I saw of Dr. King was just the marches. And he was always black, and it was fuzzy. So I'm like, okay, with Dr. King, I saw him. But I saw him, this blurry TV that we had in the field, you know. But he was, to me, that representing him. And what I loved about this one was two things. Well, the first one that I put in the I Have a Dream, you see how when you close up you can barely tell? That's because I silk screened it from behind the cloth. So it could, I didn't want it to be right in their face, I have a dream. So I did it from behind the cloth, real with a lot of paint and a lot of pressure, and it seeped through. And then in Kenya, there's a blue and white, there's a tradition where they bury the dead with a grid blue and white cloth. And I just embroidered or wove in there little squares all around just to help his way home. I did two other burial shrouds, but there did five of them. And immediately, the fourth one is finished, the fifth one was Cesar Chavez, and they were picked up by the Oakland Museum, just like that. And I was like, oh my God, what happened? They were my buds that were going to hang around the studio and look at me while I work. But I like them in the Oakland Museum. They're rolled up somewhere in the basement, but at least they're there, not under my bed. And the other thing I wanted to say about the shrouds, I will talk more about them in depth in the Fowler lecture after this. At 7, I'm doing a lecture at the Fowler next door, and I'll go more extensively into the shroud and that work, that kind of work. Here, I wanted to talk more about my walk as an artist and the works I accrued throughout the walk. So the other thing I did, my homage to the Virgen de Guadalupe, this is like 7 feet by 5 feet. And this is when I wove barbed wire for the first time into a weaving. Piece of barbed wire this big. It was horrific to get it through, but I figured it out. It was easy once I figured it out. And this piece, the linen has been e-cotted before weaving, and then I wove it, and as I wove, I silk screened, and I wove it with other linen, but I also put the barbed wire, and then I made a background drop, like a back slip to hold it. This one is in Mexico City somewhere in some collection. There's the barbed wire woven in to make sure I wove it. And this is in 1990, when I got the job at San Jose State. In the graduate program, I was the only fiber artist as a graduate student. All my other artist friends were performance, mixed media. But they would go, Consuelo, psst, I used to weave. I call them my closet textile artist. Because they wouldn't come out. They would not come out and challenge the authorities. I remember one time my committee member said, Consuelo, aren't you getting too obsessed with weaving? Shouldn't you paint? And I went, you know what? Would you have told Van Gogh you're getting too obsessed with painting? You should weave. And he looks at me and he says, well, Van Gogh changed painting. And I said, well, I'm going to change weaving. So that was in 1991, when it was cooties to have a fiber or a thread near anything art. Now, it's so everywhere, I'm debating, what do I weave? Yeah, I said, you do, Consuelo, you want to follow that hilo. So here I am traveling around, doing the work, doing academia. I'm having very little time for loom work now. I'm trying to get the tenure. And as I travel, I take along this piece of fabric that I found at a thrift store that had this image of the blue. Remember the old embroideries? You'd iron on a blue line flower and you follow it. And so I found this piece of muslin that had this pattern, this and that in it, and this one, and this one. And I went, oh, I'm going to embroider that. It's flowers. this didn't come in till afterwards. For like 3 years, I traveled that around. Why? Because it was very important to me. As a kid, I hated flowers. I didn't like them. And what are you doing in this world that's so negative, that's so horrific, and you're so beautiful? Why are you here looking at me? You know, I didn't like them. I didn't understand how they could be in so horrific of a world. Why is it flowers? And then my granddaughter was born. And they named her Sochi, which means flower. Oh my God. And then I see this rag with flowers. Okay, I'll get the dumb cloth and I'll embroider it and I'll make a quilt for my granddaughter. Pretty cool, right? Except it's like 3 feet by 5 feet. Towards the end, when I was finishing it, I went, oh my gosh. No, I don't want to see. As an artist, we see. And some of those things we see become reality if we work at it. So I saw the dead beat hen, and I saw the caution sign, the little girl. So I went, oh my gosh. So I drew the beat hen, embroidered her, drew the barbed wire, and I quilted it with the caution sign. Oh, here's the clear one. C-A-U-T-I-O-N. There's the little girl there. I quilted the whole thing. And I said, Consuelo, why? Why did you do it in white? I said, because they're ghosts. They're dead. That's why she's dead. It's for the little girl that died running across that highway. And my granddaughter, go Haggy. She calls me Haggy. I told, don't call me Grandma, Haggy. Hag was what I wanted. Why Hag? Because it means wise old woman. But we make it in this culture that's really bad. You don't want to be an old woman. Wow, that's like being a hag. Well, they call me Hag. So when it's serious, they call me Hag. But, you know, normally they just call me Haggy. So, Haggy, so what happened to my quilt? Well, it got picked up by the Smithsonian. So it's in the collection of the Smithsonian. And that happened again, really fast. I didn't even have time to appreciate it. It happened like a year after I made it. They asked for it, they got it. And then they showed it at the Chicago Museum. And apparently Laura Bush and Mrs. Fox at the time were the two president ladies. They went, they loved it. They loved it so much, Laura Bush invited me to the White House for her lunch. And this is now right after bin Laden. I find out that, when did all this happen? Oh, like 3 months ago. Really? The Smithsonian tells me, gives me a letter with a folder. Dear Consuelo, all this happened, what I told you, and we wanted to send you to the White House, invite you, but we couldn't find your address. Really? I was already tenured at San Jose State, and they couldn't find my address. So I never got the invite. I did get a letter from Mrs. Bush saying thank you for coming, and it was really great, and go girl, you know. And I went to myself, oh my gosh, they're never going to find bin Laden. They can't find me. And they didn't. It was Obama who had to find bin Laden. That stopped me cold. I had all these other things like that had happened, but this was the biggest one. My God, to have say in my record, yes, I went to the White House, and yes, I spoke Spanish to Mrs. Bush, and I spoke English to Mrs. Fox, and they both understood me. I mean, I would have loved to have done that. Didn't happen. But I do have a letter. So Consuelo, okay, so what are we going to do now? We're going to keep on making work. What about? Well, there's so many things to make work about. How about the land grabs? They're celebrating Columbus 500-year thing. Well, let's make a little homage to the 500 years of land grabs in the Americas. And so I made a little altar for each century, and I went through history. Demarcation. The Pope says, okay, I'm so powerful. Portugal, you get that. Spain, you get all that. I'm going, the audacity of the Pope to say that about some land he never even been to. So I do a little map, I put my little line of demarcation. This is all, I think this is brown cotton, the cotton that grows in colors. You know, they said the Mexicanos and the indigenous people of America, they had multicolored cottons. White cotton is only a recent thing because they don't want it tainted by the other colors, so they don't allow colored cotton to be grown in California or in other parts of the country. Arizona did allow it, and that's how I found out Sally Fox. Mm-hmm. But on this one, so this is the first line of demarcation, the first land grab. The second one is the English and the French up there doing the Dutch doing their slave trades. And they're already grabbing, Portugal already got Brazil, and over there England and France already are claiming the Americas. And at the bottom here are corn and little gold chips, because the Silicon Valley at the time was transforming from chips to computers into new kinds of computers, and they were throwing away all these boxes of gold wire and gold chips in the dumpsters. And so that's where I got my stash of gold wire and a lot of computer chips, and I started using them in my work. This is the Louisiana Purchase. You know, it's like, I don't know, it's like the Attorney General selling Alaska and the Californian to Mexico. Mexico going, okay, we'll make a deal. Forget about the president there and the people. But there it is, Louisiana Purchase, and this is now in the 1700s now. And again, the gold. So I went through the whole 500 years on this land grab series, and I really loved it because, one, it had the frame loom. Two, I got to get my little weaving yayas out, and I was running now for tenure. This is why I'm knowing small, mixed media, and installation. But I'm still weaving, and I love that. Also, another thing that I was very bothered with, remember the issues, I'm now trying to deal with issues, because I can make work about how pretty the world is or how horrible my mom was, but I don't want to do that. I want to talk about history, the real stuff, you know what I mean? So what happened here? I grew up not knowing my language. I had to learn the language of Spain and England, not my language. So I learned English and Spanish. But if you study, in Berkeley, in the late 1800s, some anthropologists put in the Berkeley Library a map of all the different languages spoken in California. At the time, this is up to 200, 300 years of who knows how much atrocities and elimination of tribes were there. But so what he did is he made a map of California, and he made sections of all the different languages. And what I did is I looked at a section, oh, that looks like a moon, I'll put a moon there. Oh, here's another language, oh, those look like two arrows, I'll put that there. And if you notice, they're color-coded. These are all the different languages that were spoken in California at the time. Some are the languages that are like Gonque. They're spoken over here in New York. The Yucateca are spoken over here in Mexico. It seemed like California was this, always has been this international place where people come together and they live in harmony, even though they speak different languages. I mean, it's not just the Germans' language versus the French. No, it's more like the Latin languages with the Asian language. They're very extremely different languages. And yet, you could just go to Long Beach, and there's a whole nother culture, a whole nother way to make boats, a whole nother way to talk, and they got along. Here's a close-up. Every one of those areas was a different language. What else did they do? Oh my gosh, I love to eat meat. I tell people I like to sharpen my fangs every morning. I'm such a carnivorous. If I don't have meat in 3 days, I'll start going weak. So these are buffalo heads. Buffalo heads. And buffalo has 17% fat, as opposed to like 70 or 80 fat that the beef has. And those buffaloes were huge. And they don't need a person to help them birth a calf the way cows do. And they say they would be from the northern part of Mexico to the southern part of Canada solid. So what Indians would be hungry Isn't that sad? They pay people to get on the train, and on the train, on the very top part, they would put machine guns so that you could shoot down all the buffalo, because the railroads hated them, because they would, once you were surrounded by buffalo, you can't make railroad tracks to fulfill your manifest destiny. And I went to history, and in Congress, in, what is that year, the very top?
1865.
1865, thank you, Michael. There's a senator there saying, you know, these buffalo are horrific. If we cut them down, not only will we make for the manifest destiny, but we will starve the Indian. And that's written. So they did it. 60 million. Then you go to Congress records again, and then they go, I said 1876. Again, it's written, oh, you know, we did it. We did the buffalo. Only there's maybe 1,000 left. And that's what they stopped. To ease their conscience, they put it on the nickel, I think, for the next 2 to 3 decades. But for me, no food. So this is like 8 feet high. Full-grown buffalo is like 8 feet. And this is the burial shroud for the buffalo with their buffalo hoof prints. I made 950 of these little squares to honor the 1,000 that lived. That was incredible that 1,000 survived. We have now like 70,000 buffalo in the U.S. But that's what I did with silk, fine, unbleached silk. And of course, in gold we trust. It's like God, though. There it is. Isn't that the coolest hoof print? Huge animal, and then they have these delicate little feet, or paws, or hoofs. And, yeah. My mom passed away around this time, and I was thinking about death and rebirth and anonymous. So I made this installation, Diaspora. They invited me to do an installation on the theme of diaspora, and I was thinking, well, how about all those anonymous souls that leave and come see the earth? How do they do it? Well, they become flowers, we know that, but I know that maybe they go through these hoops after you die, or maybe you go through hoops to come down. Who knows? I'm going to try it out. So I made this installation that reminded me of the flight of souls coming in and out of the earth, especially the Americas. And I put, flowers, petals, corn, instead of pearls, and safety pins and buttons to give it a celestial feel. And the wires are barbed wires that are wrapped with wires, just to make it a little tight when you're going through these hoops. It's not going to be super easy. And then I got this wonderful oxymoron, leather barbed wire. Can you imagine? Barbed wire made out of leather. And that was a really big one for me, because I was getting trouble in the international shows with barbed wire in my weavings. They would stop, and I have to get people from the museum and the embassy to allow the work in or out of the country, because it was somewhat bad to have. So when I came up with this, found this source of leather barbed wire, it was easier. So meanwhile, the thing is starting to heat up. The border is becoming a major issue. And I'm going, oh yeah, I remember that. So I went and did again, I talked to even the guy, I forgot his name, I know his lady's name is Susan Hood. And, but he's the one that designed the caution sign for the state of California. And at the time, there were already like maybe, I don't know how many are in here, I counted how many people had died crossing that freeway north of San Diego. And what they said once a person is run over at 70 miles an hour, you can't tell what it is. All they have left are just fragments of clothing. Everything else is unrecognizable. You can't say who it is. So then I said, oh my gosh, and they wear medium to dark clothing when they do this. So I'm going to make an honor to all those that died. I'm going to make a square for all those that perished running across that freeway. And it's like 17 by 10 feet high. And so what I did, and I am going to not sew it together, make a quilt with safety pins. So the whole thing is put together with 3-inch safety pins, quilted together. And what I did is I rated our closets for excess clothing. I cut it up, and I put it in silk screen in silver and gold. And on the bottom, I even made some beadwork, just to give it a little celebratory. You know, there is something good about death and life, isn't there? Needless to say, when I did that huge piece, it made me think of the tiny piece. And meanwhile, I think I've gotten tenure by now, and I still haven't woven my rebozo, which I wanted to do way back when I learned how to weave. Because in San Diego State, I swore to myself, when you graduate, Consuelo, you will weave every fabric in your house. You will weave rebozo for yourself. I didn't count on being a faculty person, so I never had time to do all that. So here I was, approaching, you know, I thought the end, not the end, but I know I was going towards 50, at age 50, and I still haven't made out of rebozo. I gotta make it. So I decided to make it out of little squares of cloth. Because I know once you cross that border, if you're a weaver, you're not gonna weave anymore. There's no time. And you're gonna be like me, running out of the house, oh my God, my hand, where's the safety pin? You know? I safety pinned the squares together, and I dyed some silk, and I made it for the back. So I think it's like 10,000 safety pins for each one. And I got 3 different fabrics, or 3 or 4 different fabrics, and I put them all in one dye bath, and the other half I put in another dye bath to get the 2 colors. But they're 4 different fabrics cut up in squares, and they're all in the same dye bath, and that's why you see that coming together of colors and shapes. And of course the fringe were safety pins. And each one of those had to be doubled, front and back, because to hold up the weight of the pin, the fabric wasn't enough to hold it. But you can see the different patterns of fabric. This one, that one, that one. Isn't that fun? And I brought, I did 2. The Mexican Museum has those, and this is the 3rd one I made, and that one's still up for grabs. But later on we can see that one. And that was my rebozo. I went, okay, I did a rebozo, let's keep on with this. And it did make it to the cover, and I was really happy. The thing I really like about this slide is, I love that social conscious, and that my work embodies that. Oh, they got it. I was so happy. Because, folks, when I started, I thought artists lived in caves, and we would just make beautiful things and leave them outside, and people would leave money or food, and that's all you did as an artist. Half of it is just learning how to make the art. The other half is promoting and selling it. And that's where a lot of great artists go, psh. So I went, okay, Consuelo, you won't get famous, you won't make a lot of money, but you will be a footnote. So that's what I went for, to be a footnote in history. And the more I got in magazines and the more I got in newspapers, the more footnoting. So I was getting, my mom had passed away, my dad was I was taking care of him, and I could see that he was going too. So then I said, okay, you gotta lighten up, My friend Webster from Anthony Lucadia, San Marcos. He owns Azteca Beer. He bought this. Anyway, he makes this cartoon and it gets published in the thing. And I went, this is a really fun. I mean, it's just fun. He is from Vista, not San Marcos. There I see it right there. And then I see this one, I'm going, you know, they're having fun. Consuelo, you have fun. Why don't you make a giant caution sign? Weave a huge one. Get it out of your system. So I did. And that's it with caution tape and it's, you know, like 4 feet, it's like 10 feet high, like 6 feet wide. And I wanted to give it the indigenous flavor. So that you see that it's woven, and on top I kind of pseudo made it look like it almost a backstrap where you pick up those barbed wires to separate the threads. It's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That's what it's about. That's why I'm not just making placemats and towels and weaving my curtains. Because I have to make this. Otherwise, I would. But I don't see anybody else doing stuff like this. So I feel like, somebody asks, why do you do it? Well, I feel like all these anonymous women that went down, that created beautiful things and went down anonymously, they're all saying, Consuelo, do it. Get it into the arts. Don't let it just stay at craft, you know. And that was what inspired me. It's not me. So, and I also love chile. I told you I love meat. Well, you gotta have chile. So this is a giant molcajete, 5 feet across. I made her chicken wire. And it's like, to me it was like the skin. You know how the rattlesnake sheds the skin? So I felt like I shed the skin off of the molcajete. I mean, of course, you can't just make one. There's another shot of it with some of my work in the back. I had to make 2. Barbed wire as the skeleton, and the chicken, and it's not chicken wire, sorry. It's aviary wire netting. I was told that in the museum. It's not chicken wire, so. Okay, it's aviary wire netting. Yes! You want to play? My whole thing as a kid, I'm going to infiltrate. You better believe I will infiltrate those walls. So then I'm going to have more fun. They were calling it the tortilla wall. They bring down the German Berlin Wall. At the same time we're celebrating, they're building it up over here. Okay, billions are going into this wall. They called the tortilla wall until it became unpopular because it wasn't politically correct, like 4 or 5 years after they started making it. And I went, they like it. And then I read that tortillas outsold white bread in the U.S. And I went, you know, why don't we make a giant tortilla and take it to the tortilla wall so that the ocean mother can see what it does with it, and the tortilla wall can see a tortilla. So I dyed a whole bunch of corn leaves, sewed them together to make giant tortilla. And of course, a tortilla, you need a basket. So congruently, I'm making a 6-foot basket. It's so much fun. And of course, you need a tortilla cloth. So I did silk, and the whole hem has embedded inside, what do you call it? Corn leaves and flower petals. And then I embroidered on the corn leaves Yaqui words that are not either Spanish or English, so that you get, you know, it's indigenous. If you don't know the word, that means, maso means deer, Mazatlan. Not venado. In Spanish, it's venado. Very different. So I had fun with that. And I put it in, I had to make 6 tortillas. In fact, I made 8 of them. I almost was going to go for 12. I'm going, Consuelo, no, no. I remember my dad keep walking back and forth, looking at me going, while I was making these tortillas. He got it, but he didn't get it. And one got caught in the aviary wire netting. And the other one I took to the ocean mother, but first it had to meet its nemesis, the tortilla wall. The other side is that pink building. Somebody was playing Chopin on the piano. It's Tijuana. And on this side, there were 3 guys, the Homeland Security folk, on 3 SUVs. but three on the Minutemen guys on horseback with rifles here, and three guys over here on three SUVs, and they're all, get away from the wall, get away from the wall. And when these guys can be on the wall, and the students are terrified, and I'm like, take the picture, just take the picture. They were afraid to take their picture of the SUVs. That's all. It's okay. I just wanted a picture of me and the tortilla. And this is what it looked like at the time. And we were just hounded. We got here to make that picture was here, hounded, and then we walked it to the ocean because I wanted to throw it to the ocean to see which way it's going to go. And these guys were hounding us, but we did it. And there's kind of like the sequence up there on the top is the guy over there. I can work. Take me over there. I can work for you. And I'm like, oh no, they're going to think I'm talking to him. Oh no. You know, I'm just trying to ignore him. And then the tortilla doesn't want to go. And I'm like, you're going to go flat. You're going to get photographed. You need to go flat. And this, dissolving, doesn't want to go flat. Finally, it's going away. And you see it traveling, and I want to know, is it going to go that way or this way? Which way is this tortilla going to go? It went down. All that work. And it went down. And I didn't get to see. Which way would the Mother Ocean want? Where does it want the corn tortilla? Okay, so that was the drama. Homeland Security and Minutemen. I mean, that was it. That's all I was going to do. Let's get out of here. So, I have the images on the photograph. And I put it into the show that I called, again, Having Fun, Tortillas, Chiles, and Other Border Things. I mean, come on. Let's celebrate. And since then, 3 years later, almost a date, look what they did. They made sure Consuelo didn't do that again. Isn't that interesting? 3 years to the date. That's how long it takes. 1 year to think about it, 2 years to get the money, and the third year to do it. So now nobody can do what I did. You can only go here, folks. Even though legally, as citizens, and the Minutemen on horseback with guns can go here. But you and I can't. Isn't that the most interesting? Oh, no. Yeah. That's my dad. And so during that time he was going away, I made this piece. And it's called Undocumented Border Flowers. So what's that about? Well, it's about these undocumented tortilla happening. Undocumented tortilla happening. So these tortillas don't have documents. They were very calm and beautiful, but then in the middle of the night, busted, they don't have documents. That's what this is about. That moment of fear, flight. Look at that. Took me, 2 years? It's made of barbed wire. The basket that is holding. Isn't that beautiful? So I don't know if that was my dad taking off or me taking off from academia. Because around this time I said, okay, I gotta go. I gotta do my work, and I gotta do family, and I gotta do Consuelo. I can't do it anymore. I used to be able to do everything when I was 30s and my 40s, but at 50s I started getting tired. I didn't have the energy to do all four things. So I knew I had to cut back, and what am I going to cut back? Well, the one I don't like. I mean, it was wonderful to see the students, but it was very difficult for me to work in academia time. Their time, the sense of time was not my 10-year, the institution goes on forever. What did somebody say? We were talking about it, and he says, the clock it goes like this for academia, and I want it to go like this, spin that baby. So I decided, okay, let me let go of academia. I've already taught two decades of kids of how to make art with thread. enough, let me just do my own now. I've already ignited and sprouted all these little flowers all around, so they all know how to make it and do it with art, with hilo. So move on. Oh, and some of the tortillas may have a Virgen de Guadalupe or a caution sign. We're not sure, but we think. And that one happened to be on the cover for one of them happened to be on the cover for this magazine. So then we talk about flags. I was always disturbed by the flags because, with issues with documentation with my dad, England and Spain, and they're having it out over here in the Americas. And people like us are caught in the middle between Spain and England, and I lived in both sides, worked on both sides, not worked in Mexicali, but in the winter we'd go to Mexicali and Calexico area and hang out there with the onion and the garlic. And then after that, in the spring and in the summer, we'd go back north and do the rest. But I always felt that it was very colonial, crossing the border, being in this land. So I played with flags throughout the last 10, 20 years. And this is the one I was making when my dad was living with me. And this is woven, and it's, what do we say, like 4 feet, 5 feet. And you can see that it's the U.S.-Mexican flag together over there in Sunnyvale, California, the area where I live, in the Silicon. Libby's was very good. They worked with U.S. government. And actually, my dad went to that area in one of his first trips in the 40s as a bracero. And during that time, Mexico didn't, or the U.S. paid any of the braceros. They got room and board and an adventure. And I retired from the academia, and I went back to that frame loom, and I pursued the flag. The merging of the two flags, how they really are to me just one flag. I mean, they both have their homelands elsewhere. I don't think America's is there. The land is not what they love. I think they love the resources. So here's the one I made as my dad passed on. And this is like 1 inch by 3 inches. I mean, they're very small, the tapestries. This is in somebody's collection. A hold down. And linen, and a little metallic, but mostly linen. And then now we get to the bigger flags. This is like 5 feet, like 7 feet long. Almost. It's really big. It's a little bigger than this, another foot on all the areas. And again, it's the U.S. Mexico, but you can't tell which one now, right? I completely went like this to them. And here's the borderline. Here's the California poppy. This looks like the yucca. This is the Texas bluebonnet. There is the saguaro from Arizona. And somewhere around here is the yucca. This must be the yucca from New Mexico. That's the bluebonnet. That's the saguaro, and this is the California poppy. It's the theme that I have of these flowers, the state border flowers that live on both sides, and they don't have documents. So what do they do? So this took like 2 years to make, and this is during my breaks. When I would do something, I'd leave this on the table, and basically what I did is I got Cinco de Mayo, the party time, they got these huge flags. I just got a huge flag and just went at it with red. Went at it with white. Red, white, and then blue and black. So basically it's just sewing. Just red and white and blue. I just sewed the American flag onto the Mexican flag. And the best part was the quilting of the eagle. Oh my God, that was glorious to have that. And pierce and follow and draw the eagle with my threads. And of course, the infamous oxymoronish leather barbed wire in bright blue.
Where is this one?
This one right now is under my bed, But but it will be going to the Nevada Art Museum. I'm going to have all my rebosos and some of the works in here. They'll be in there for 6 months.
Oh, that's great.
And the Nevada and Reno, they're getting that one for 6 months. They'll have that show up. So they're going to have the caution sign, a couple of these flags, and all my rebosos. So yeah, but this is so beautiful. It's luscious. You pick it up and it just feels so good. It's like a giant quilt, but it's more than that. And here's one that I wove, and this is a little bigger. This is like, I don't know, 5 feet high, and then maybe 7 or 8 across. And what I did is I wove like 34 inches here. I wove another white strip, and I wove another strip here. And then I safety pinned them together. And I safety pinned them to the bottom fabric, which is the indigenous fabric of the Americas. And the hoop, that is no longer the eagle, but it's the hoop, hopefully, that brings everybody together. And the infamous borderline. There's a close-up. You can see it's all fabric, and I put the flowers again. Oh, there's a close-up, and you can see, peek through it, you'll be able to see the Guatemalan fabric, the real fabric masters, and then you can see the safety pins are what's holding all the 3 layers together. And on the borderline, there's a caution sign hanging at each point where there is the wall already constructed. Because once the wall is constructed, then the susla, nothing grows on like a mile on each side of the wall. Oh, this is at the show I just came out of the Triton Museum. That's the exhibition. See, there you get a sense of the scale of the pieces and the flag on the left.
That's at the Triton?
Yeah, that was this past year. It went down like in December.
It's amazing to see the scale of it.
Oh yeah. And you notice that I love the tiny ones.
Yeah.
And these are the rebosos for the shawls for the mothers, and kind of close-ups. So you got the mundane, the gold. These I'm going to give a lecture right now at 7 at the Fowler on this series and the bear, and another kind of work that's very meticulous. For this one, I wanted to give you the more active, charged one, but they're all hand woven. They all take 2 seasons to make, and they're watching. It's like, they're watching. So let's see if I have any. There is a reboso. Aren't they beautiful young ladies from the Silicon Valley? And I swear you can see every race in these 3 faces.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful to me. Everyone. There's not one country that is not there. Is that the most? I mean, that gives me so much hope for the future. These are our flowers. There's the moon. I want to give you a scale. This is my lumen, the Cupertino home. And you can see I'm making a little moon image there. And which brings us to what ended up being the moon reboso without the image. In fact, it's just real beautiful, fine cotton that I wove in honor of her. And I want to do the black side of the moon, because on the other side of the moon, it never changes. So this is black always. And I got to do one that is so soft, but all black. Do you see what I mean? That's 2 seasons though, but it's got to get done. I can weave for another 10, 15 years. There's the one for the mundane mother. I wanted to do this series right off the bat. I wanted to do the Virgen de Guadalupe now. She said, honey, slow down. You got to go for the other mothers first. Okay, the moon. Honey, slow down. You have a mother, right? Oh, yeah. My mundane mother, mother of the real world. So this is for the uterus. That gets a little stronger. There's it's at the Fowler, but this is a very lightly drawn embroidered image of the uterus, and as you go up the piece, it will continue. There's like 3 uteruses, and I don't know if you can see it on this one. No, you won't be able to. You see one? Oh, there it is, one here. And so they dissipate, and then at the bottom. And it's really interesting because these are big, right? I have one right here. These are big, and it's interesting because that image is what the men get drawn to, and the women are like this. And then you tell the men it's a uterus. Oh my God, they run away. And then the women get what? The women are what? It is so funny. It's funny. And then I get to think about history. All those carvings back then, to me they look like uteruses, but it's a ram's head, whatever. Okay, whatever you want to say, I'll believe it and I'll mark it on the test. Ram's head, yes. But that's the uterus. And there's a little faint one, and then there's 3 of them that they get more and more stronger. These are very lightweight, as you'll see on the real one. And they're made thread. This is the one for the Virgen de Guadalupe. Again, I'm going to show that one at the Fowler. And after, in a month, I won't touch them or I won't have any access to them for 6 months, but that's okay. But see how fine? And this is the thread from Japan intended for the kimono embroidery. Oh. Wow! And this is silver from Japan intended for kimono embroidery. Now the one that I'm making now, which is almost done, it's like literally right there, and I need to go right here to finish it. It's silver with the gold. Because a girl got to have more than one rebozo, right? Virgen just can't have a gold one. She's got to have a silver one. Mm-hmm. But one thread at a time. It takes 6 months if I go fast. That's what it takes. That's the fringe of the one for the Virgen de Guadalupe. The gold. I was really debating whether to leave this, because this is what we call the filler. But I just felt that it grounded her. Mm-hmm. It grounded her to reality. And then she could take off. Mm-hmm. So I left the filler in. Now on the silver one, will I do the same? I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And the top is beautiful because just linen and just making a strong top. But is that too gorgeous?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is what happened when I retired. I should have been doing this 20 years ago, but I'm doing it now, okay. We had to do academia. You can't say no to a job like that, right? There she is in her full glory. And there's a silver one that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And see how see-through they are.
Yeah.
See the shift from here to here? Yeah. It's white. That you can see your hand. I mean, they're really fine. And then congruently, I go crazy. So this is the first installation I made. They gave me a wall. Do whatever you want. You can put work on there. And I went, you know what? I think I'm going to put the border line there. Yeah. So, and this one is called Undocumented Border Flowers. So the whole idea was there is the poppy, the blue bonnet, the yucca, and the saguaro, and they don't have documents. So they're not sure where to go. And this is Texas, and that's California. And yes, it looks like a bull. I didn't know it until we saw the image of the photograph. And would you know, I'm a Taurus, and I was also born in the year of the ox. So I'm going, of course it had to be, Consuelo. Okay, well, next one it won't happen like that. But anyway, along the borderline, I made giant nails. And those nails represent the gold for the oro and the plata for the silver, because that's what we call the currency back in the day. Gold is for the U.S. currency, and silver is for Mexican currency. So in the house, we say, ¿Tienes plata o oro? And what kind of money do you have? So all the border fight for me is about gold and silver. And so there's nails along the border where the line is already, the wall is built. So you've got nails here, 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 and over there. And the idea is to make the total wall, and if you can imagine, 1 mile this way, 1 mile that way, after 2 or 3 generations, we have a giant wasteland of desert. Mm-hmm. Wow, isn't that cool for our great-grandkids to see a desert of nothing? The flowers still are beautiful, just like when I was a kid. They gave me an opportunity to make one in Fresno. And we didn't have enough room for the whole, so we said, why don't you go across on the wall one like this? Isn't that gorgeous? And then I had to make a homage to, I just wanted to weave portraits for the southwestern border flowers with the borderline inside. So this is the one for Arizona where my grandkids lived, with all the chatter and then all that is the cosmic chatter. Can you believe the flowers now have borders in them? Can you believe that? Because they don't have documentation. And their home is going to become a wasteland. There's California, the poppy. They look like a sunset, sunrise. And I did a series of lots of little ones. These are like 2 inches by 3 inches of poppies, as cosmic as landscape. And they gave me an opportunity to make another wall with the cactuses and the blessings. Isn't that one? And you stand up, it's like this high. They're like this. It's like 17 by 24 feet. So then they gave me a 17 by 45. Oh, look at these threads of the barbed wire. That's the best part, is when what threads are going to be the borderline. And at the very end, I bring all the threads, and then in the end, they say me, and those win. Oh yeah, and at each point of where the wall is, I give them Mexicali, Calexico, Tecate, the border towns that live on both sides. And where they are there, I painted the words on top of a photograph that I took of a wall that sells Mexican goods. You know, all the chiles and the spices. And you see the same wall on both sides of the border, because everybody buys the same brands of products. When you go to the grocery store, there's Mexican food. That same wall is in every store in Mexico too. So it's like, what's going on? I love these beads. They remind me of the old indigenous women that's why I'm starting to wear them too. I'm getting old, so now I can wear jewelry, glitz it up the way they do. I mean, they're like, shh, you know, and I never used to like jewelry. It bothered me when I make work, it takes me off balance. But then I saw these old 80, 90-year-olds, you know, with jewelry to the hilt. They celebrate life, and they're just so poor, but they celebrate life. I love that part. You can see there. This is a more festive, more homage, more life, more hope. It's sad, but it's tragic, and life is wonderful even though it's hard. And then they gave me the 17 by 45 foot wall. So you stand around right here. So that's the world, because the whole world has borders.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're going to do as people. So these are different set of threads that I use. I made giant flowers to make the land masses. The nails are from the hardware store, just huge nails like this big. I think that's Australia. And so when you stand right here. Like, oh my God, it's working. But they truncated it. It seems like it's truncated. I'm not that tall. I wish I was. I wish I looked like that, but squat me down another foot. This is a book by Clara Romano Odio, and she put me on the cover here. I thought it was only going to be a footnote. I find it, and it's one of the, the diaspora. So it's a really, she's made another book. She's publishing a lot, but I just thought I'd promote her book. It's called Global Networks, and it's an anthology of writings, actually, women living on the borderlands throughout the world and what's going on with them. She teaches at Kenyon College. And currently, I got in this show. I'm so busy now that I'm retired, I can now say yes to things. But look at this. This is apparently Eric. No, what is it? It's Oscar is a student here, and so is Antonio is an ex-student, graduate students. But they're all young men, and then there's this old lady called Consuelo Jimenez Underwood. What's with that? Yes. So see what I did. That's the wall they gave me.
Wow.
And that's right now, I know up until December, but these are the LA freeway systems. Because those Angelinos, they know about that border. You go out of the LA area, but my area, they go, what border? What? Huh? But every LA person knows about the border here, right? They know where it is. And so what I did, and you can't tell, this is just my image from the shoot. It just happened 2 weeks ago. We were here, Michael. I don't know when we were here. So I'm getting the real professional ones, hopefully in the next week or two. But the freeways have these little paintings in them. And what are they? They're the flags of all the different countries in the world. Because this is such an international place. They kind of know how to get along, you know? It's not this, I don't know what border you're talking about. They know. And that's Chris, or Greg, the gallery assistant. And there's the young man running, and you get a sense of the scale. See the sense of the scale there.
Yeah, that's fabulous.
And we're trying to do the caution, but you know, theater is not our number one. And I think that's it. Yep, that's it. Thank you very much. Now we can see that. So we need lights, cameras, and action. And then I'd like to invite you to come up here and check out this stuff. I got two here, but I got two other ones at the Fowler. Now we'll be talking there. And then this is the.
How heavy is it?
Huh?
How heavy is it?
Pick it up. It's not that heavy. It is heavy. It's not like my rebosos. This is mixed media.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, and then I love the beads, and then this beadwork is gold, and this when I install it in the exhibition, this falls on top.
Oh.
It hangs forward, so that you get the sense of the fringe
Yeah.
going
To see what's going on in the
down.
back too,
Yeah,
because it's the same on the back.
it's the same. No, except you don't see the
Except
heads.
you don't see the heads
Yeah.
of the pins.
That's beautiful too.
And it's amazing how this feels.
Yeah,
it has a
I
lot
was
It has that feel of
surprised.
fabric.
And then I love my barbed wires.
Yeah.
I hang them up.
Man.
You know, wrap them up. And there's like 5 or 10,000, I forgot, it was 5 or 10,000 beads for each, safety pins for each piece. And it takes like a summer. A summer to do it. It took me a summer to do this one. But by this one, it was already, I knew what I was doing. It was like, okay, I got through the first two.
This is the only green one, is it?
Yeah.
Like
Well, this is, but that's not a real green.
It's like a real, like,
Yeah.
brighter green.
Is it- No, that's not
No.
it. And it could be in the back too, because they're different. Well, there's the same in the back, huh? Took a while. So I think we should. Can you help me pick up this and then just put it on top of this one with the paper and everything, and then we can look at this one. You want to pick it up like this, and then we can put it on top. I'll walk this way. It's fabric. It's fabric. Isn't it right?
Yeah, it is. And it's been stuck on the pins.
It's wire. Feel this. This is wire. These women are tough. These are tough women.
Yeah.
They're wire, okay? And then I had to make I made my barbed wire out of aluminum for the 5 oceans. This is for the Mother Ocean.
Is your thread from Japan?
No, that was gold and silver. These are from my personal
Oh,
stash. This is synthetic rayon. The Japan are real gold, real silver.
Yeah.
And the real gold one is at the Fowler. I'll show that one at 7 when I talk there. But if you feel it, they're lightweight and they get finer. This is like number 3 reboso. So they just got finer and finer.
It's amazing putting this barbed wire in there, unbelievable.
Oh yeah. Isn't that incredible? I love, and look at the threads I'm working with.
Yeah.
That's why it takes 2 seasons.
I see.
And I can't do it more than 3 hours. I used to be able to do 6 or 8 hours nonstop, but now it's 2 or 3 hours. Okay, what counts? The little miniature or clean the
Do
house,
something,
wash
anything.
dishes, whatever I need to do, but I'll do it.
After a day's work, how do your hands feel?
Great. What hurts is probably my shoulder, but then Michael massages it in. It's over. Yeah, but the hands are, my hands are scary. That's a good question, because now I'm really scared to pick up delicate glass. I feel like sometimes my hands have been working with barbed wire and stuff, that I don't know their strength.
Yeah.
So I'm a little afraid of the strength. But I love the feel of it. I mean, so I'm an oxymoron, I am extreme, I have to do huge, I love this
The itty bitty fine.
thing too. And then for the mothers, I was going, okay, the series is over, but I need a silver one that's almost done for the Virgen. I'm going, wow, Consuelo, you got 10 pairs of shoes. These ladies are only getting one rebozo. What about the rivers? What about the lakes? What about the rain? And the black side of the moon. I mean, it can go on. And the earth, I didn't show you all the images of the earth and that I have, and there's so many things to do. I just have to really think about it, because once I commit, the loom is tied up for 6 months.
Yeah.
And so I really have to know. But I know I love these women, and I know they've always taken care of me. So it's okay that if I do this until I can't do it anymore, because congruently, I'll do something else. I can't do this all the time. There's no way. I would die. I mean, I'd get carpal tunnel of the body. So now I go 2 or 3 hours, and then I have to stop at least another hour. And then I might wait another day, or I might wait 2 days, or I might just do another 3 hours that evening.
And does each piece have a name, a title?
Yeah, this is for the Ocean Mother, Rebozo for the Ocean Mother, and the other one is Rebozo for the Earth, and Rebozo for the Virgen, and Rebozo for the Mundane Mother, and Rebozo for the Moon.
You know the big caution one that you did textile? How long did it take you to do that?
That was like a summer.
A summer, just 3 months?
Yeah, that was bigger, and that was bigger, but it was coarser. I mean, it was thicker yarn. It wasn't this fine.
You were using the tape, right? The caution.
A caution tape
Yeah,
and
that's a little
cloth
thicker.
and thread.
Yeah.
So it's more like this, but finer. Where it doesn't take like this, which is forever. It takes an hour to do like this much. If I do that much in an hour, one movie is like this much.
Exactly.
Because you can't, as a textile, you can't be here you have to. The trick is, you got to pretend you're indigenous and you're doing it under a tree, and the bird hits you, or the guy walks by, or the kids over there. You always have to keep your eye moving to change those muscles around. Yeah,
How
because
does your eyesight affected? Is your eyesight affected?
the only thing that affected me was a stupid airbag. I was having really good vision until then. I mean, I can see. I mean, I have really good vision. But an airbag hit me like 3 years ago, and now this eye the iris doesn't close. So I have to wear these things so the light just doesn't go in there and kill it. But my eyesight is great, because I knew that trick from day one. And I knew I wanted to weave forever, so I'm not about to just do it because I can do it. No. Consuelo's going to take care of her eyes and her body.
When you start off, do you kind of have a sense of a vision what you think it's going to be?
Yeah, I have to.
And then when
I
it's
have to.
complete, you're like, yeah, that's
with your
kind of what I
painting?
thought.
Pardon?
I'm sorry, I'm
Go ahead.
asking
No,
sort
no.
of similar questions.
Go ahead.
So do you sketch it all? I mean, you have your painting
I have
background.
the sketches of the idea, but not the drawing of it. Because I find the drawing is too tedious. I'd rather be doing it than drawing it.
So that's just enough to get you where you need
Yeah,
to.
and I know enough now. I learned in graduate school, do not put something on the loom if you don't know what you're going to do. Because you're going to put yourself into 2 or 3 weeks, and then you don't even know what it's like.
Yeah.
So back in the day, I do life drawing, life sketch, and make sure that the sign is in the right place. But now that I'm a master, and I know what these women want. I know what they want. I know what the sun looks like if it's a flower. I don't need to sketch that, because I can just make it happen now without thinking about it. But back in the day, you should sketch, because I was burnt A couple of times.
But you still see spontaneity.
Oh, definitely.
You know,
I set
so
up
it's
5.
not- I
Oh
mean,
my gosh. How many want to
yeah.
play? Okay. Well, for right now, you guys will play. I'll select 5.
Yeah.
And then out of the
And
5
that's
threads.
really an awesome thing about experiencing your work.
Exactly, because I know these
Yeah.
things. I've been doing it for 30 years. So
Yeah.
out of 5 threads, I'll use 4, maybe the 5th one once in a
Yeah.
while. And there's a lot of spontaneity because there's nothing in
Yeah.
here that is similar except that I'm using the same 4 or 5 threads.
I think what I love is how you talk to your thread and you
Yeah,
ask
really.
them what,
It's
who wants to
it's
come.
those anonymous old dead women that I'm asking.
Yeah.
And there are
That's
the
it.
threads. They're the ones
exactly
I ask.
it.
Yeah.
I don't ask, I'm talking to them, but I'm really talking to the, what do you guys want? 'Cause I'm just here doing it for you.
That's
What
what I
do
feel as a
yeah.
poet. I'm a poet and I do the same
Yeah,
thing when you
hear
write.
writers.
You know, you hear something else.
Yeah,
It's like
if somebody else is doing
somebody's
this.
telling you a story and you, okay,
Yeah.
let me write the story down for the
Exactly.
piece down.
So this is what
So
I,
it's
what do you want me to
amazing.
weave? What do you want me to weave? So I feel like from the beginning I've been possessed by these women, you know, that just
That's
want,
exactly it.
that are telling me, do it, do it, do it. So I'm doing
But I
it.
imagine this right here, you didn't plan this awesome, but maybe you did. You know, the fact
I
that
wanted it to do it originally like
Uh-huh.
that, but I'm going, that's not a real rebozo, Consuelo.
yeah,
This is your,
this is what.
but in the end, maybe, okay, you can play, because the ocean isn't all this. It comes down to the
That's
shore
true,
as
yeah.
waves through
It's
the
so-
sand.
oh my
And then I
God,
went,
now you
okay,
see-
I can do this, yes! That's how it happened.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't sure how I was going to end it. I knew, but yeah, like a year prior to this, I wanted to do it like this, but it was like, no. You have your Boso tradition. Let's follow that and then see what
then-
happens. And so then I got the permission to go there, and I'm so glad I did. Because it's like we said, that's a washing, the water going into the sand now.
You
It's,
see that so clearly.
yeah,
You said that.
yeah. It's so cool.
When you warp your loom, how do you warp your loom with the wire?
I have to use the living room and the hallway, and Michael has to come in through the kitchen door.
And I mean,
Because
and
it
that
takes 2 to 3
tension,
weeks.
yeah,
It's, I just put them all out.
Oh, okay.
And just spread out all the way down to that hallway. If
Okay.
this is my studio. I put the loom here, and I put the wire all the way to the desk, all the way to the desk, each one. And then after each one is there, nobody comes in this room. If they do, they go around the side.
Okay.
And then after it's all set, then I'll roll it up. That's how you do it. I mean, that's how you
Yeah,
do that fine
yeah,
rebozo
yeah.
with wire.
The wire.
this is
yeah.
wire.
Yeah, no, I know that.
Isn't
I
that
know,
cool?
and that's like
Isn't that cool? Now a thread, you just put a
thread
braid.
sewn.
Yeah, but a wire, you don't want
wire
to.
is very difficult.
Yeah, very. And it is and it isn't. It's so much better for me than thread because it doesn't break.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
and it has, and if you point it, it'll stay pointed as opposed to
right.
drop like the cotton. You know.
Right.
So it's easier for me to work with the wire too. But I love this. I love the
little
delicatness of
The
this.
metallics and stuff. Yeah.
As a graduate student, you know, you can go to any archive in the world and have a letter from your department, and they'll send you to the archives if you want to see what's going on. So I went to the archives of the the Natural History Museum here in the Balboa Park. The Balboa Park had one of the best burial shrouds of Peru.
Oh my God! Oh.
And imagine these things, super fine, and the burial shrouds were plain, just this,
Yeah,
except the
yeah.
edges were incredible little tapestries.
Yeah.
But the thing was, you picked them up and it was like picking up butterfly wings, no weight. That's how beautiful they were, and that's what inspired me to do fine, beautiful work in terms of, oh, now I know what it feels like. Because you only see it through pictures as a student.
Yeah.
But as a graduate student, I made the effort to go and check out the archives of things they don't put out, you know. So at the Fowler, they let me pull out some rebosos. So I get to go check those out. So if you want to see that, so those are going to show, I'm going to show my 2 other ones that I
It's
don't
at 7
have here.
p.m., right?
Huh?
7 p.m.?
It's 7 p.m. at the Fowler. I know. It's
I have to
tempting.
work tomorrow. You're talking about these jobs. Like, yeah, I wish I could quit my job.
But this is another job. I've never been so, I overbooked. I shouldn't have overbooked this fall. I will do it. But I'm already getting booked for next year. And it was when you were younger, you could do everything. But
Yeah.
now it's just, I don't want to run. I love this one because Michael, we came in, we saw him he went through his alumni when he was a student here, and we got slow.
Yeah.
Instead of running, I'm late, I gotta go, okay, where's the bathroom? Can't go to the bathroom, okay. You know, that was when I was teaching.
Just nice and easy.
Yeah.
Now it's like,
Well, I'm so
yeah.
happy for you.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm happy for
Yeah.
me too, because
Yeah.
it wasn't fun at the end there. It's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, okay, got it, I did it, next. So anyway, so that's the story, Morning Glories.
Do you mind if I take a picture of you? And
No
your work?
problem at all.
Thank you. Thank you.
See, you're a poet,
Mm-hmm.
and you know it. Hope you don't know it.